Hey everybody, it's been a few weeks since I made a video. I don't want you guys to forget what I look like or sound like. Right now we have a cutting class going on, and cutting's going to involve, whether we like it or not, some old school things. And I want to go over some torch ideas today. First off, chapter 2 in the book. You guys probably can recite this by now. But I'm going to bring up safety no matter what. So behind me I've got some examples of what not to have in your area. A spare cylinder. A box of rags. A can of gasoline. Yes, I've seen people that foolish. The trash. We often forget about it. But your trash can go up in smoke, go up in a ball of flames. So, you want to make sure you don't overlook anything. Okay, you might not be the guy that puts the gasoline in your area, but you might forget about the rags. You might forget about the trash. They're all hazards. And they're things that we often won't think about, but they can come back to get us. I have been welding before, pick up my hood, and someone set something behind me in my work area. And guess what's on fire? Box of rags. Trash can. Something stupid. Little mistakes like that can cost us big. Can cost you an injury. Can cost you your life. Can cost someone else theirs. We want to make sure those things are not present. When it comes to a torch, you have torches such as this that'll use a short tank or a little tank. These are not welding torches. They do not get used for steel. They get used to put the solder joints in a piece of pipe. And the solder joints are the little silver and gray areas that you see here. So this heats up this joint. It gets flux put in there. And the person lays solder in there until that solder gets pulled into the joint, making a nice watertight seal. Not welding. If someone hands you a torch like this and expects you to weld with it, wrong tool. So, with the idea of torches, whether it's this torch or a cutting torch, it will work for our industry. Again, chapter 2, safety. This and this are not acceptable ways, according to OSHA and any one of your employers, for lighting a torch. This right here won't work. Yes, it will light the torch, but it won't work. You'll break every safety violation there is. This, when you light said torch, the torch is going to push gases back into the end of this. Can cause this thing to explode. I don't know if you guys have ever played around with these and made one explode. They're violent. You don't want this going on in your hand a foot from your face. It'll take part of you with it. The next thing, you want to know what torch you're going to use. For instance, if I'm going to be brazing, this is not the tip for brazing. I can remove this head because this is a shop torch. I can place this one on. And you only want it hand tight. Now, I can use this for brazing and some welding, depending on the size of the tip. You have to make sure you're not putting in too small a tip for flame welding or too large a tip for flame welding. One of the oldest types of welding there is. Back in the 40s and 50s, we did quite a bit of this. As time moved on, electricity and welding became more popular, we moved away from this. Very, very few instances we'd be welding this with this in 2020. So, we need to know that we've got the right application, we've got the right setup. We don't want any misunderstandings. When we put this all back together, we want to make sure that our torch has good seals and they're in good shape. When this is put together properly, you should be able to place this together hand tight. If you have to grab this to tighten this up, something in here needs to be fixed. A welding supply place. There's some in Pittsburgh, there's some in Cleveland, there's some in Youngstown. You can send your torch off to get it fixed or rebuilt, seals reinstalled, things like that. The next thing that I want everybody to consider before you light your torch, are all of these holes clean and clear? The last time we made a cut with this, did we have slag jump up into our holes? If we did, then we pull out our torch tip cleaners. Torch tip cleaners are miniature files meant to fit in these holes, clean everything out. That way when we light our flame, we have all these holes open and providing the correct heat. If not, our cut's going to be compromised. Sometimes we have enough slag getting these holes, we cannot clean it out any longer. Let's face it, man-made things wear out. At times, you have to put a new tip in your torch. Make sure you study the tip. Make sure you've got the correct numbers for what you're doing. This is a 1. This is number 1 tip. Notice the difference between a Harris tip and a Victor tip. You might get this to fit in the end of here. But without this, see how this is flush and this is extended? Without these fitting in there properly, you are going to have an explosion in the end of your torch. This is not good at all. So, if we deem it necessary to change our tip, notice I did not get carried away with pressure. If you have to get carried away with pressure on this, there's a problem in here. Okay, I took that ring off. That tip is still in there. You are never to get a hammer. You are never to beat the end of this. You take this thing and you tap it. Comes right out. We don't want to abuse these. Abusing this torch, it's made of stainless steel and brass. Abusing this torch can mean horrible things. This is something we want to treat just as carefully as a sharp knife. It's an instrument that we'll use all the time. So, these are mating surfaces. Again, for a different style torch. I might get that to go on there, but it's not going to seat, and it's not going to work. Good rule of thumb, when you put this back on, twist it around. Make sure that you feel it mate carefully. If not, that means there's dirt in it. What if this thing drops on the floor? If it drops on the floor, these surfaces can be dented. If these surfaces are dented, they will take away your proper seal. So we want to make sure that goes in correctly. Once we get that almost tight, we back it off. We double check it. We snug it back up. Notice I did not go Conan the Barbarian on this. We don't want this to get damaged. We damage these threads. We damage this inside. Bad news. So, everything about this torch is delicate. If these, on the inside, if these get damaged or bent, and I've seen this happen, these are delicate valves. They're only to be hand tightened. If you ever see somebody with a pair of channel locks or vice grips tightening and untightening these, that torch has to be taken out of service. These things are not made of carbide steel inside. They're made of brass. Come on up here. Notice the different styles of torches. I have one here made by Smith. It's a little smaller than the others. Smith is not as big a name as it used to be. But you'll still find some parts for it. This one is so old, the nameplate is worn smooth. When they get to be that old, you may consider using a different torch. And again, I want you to note something. Look at this. Somebody damaged this torch and they actually soldered it back together. Not the best idea. Now it works. They fixed it. But if you have to solder a tube back together on a torch, consider the cost of replacing it. This is a dedicated hand torch. You cannot weld, you cannot braze with this. But this thing is so old, I have quit using this. This is a last resort. The world's on fire, and nothing's going to be here tomorrow. That's when I'll use this torch. Outside of that, I'll use my modern Victor. Okay. One thing I do want to show and make known to you guys is the difference in gases used. Just as propane will burn in our small torches, propane is possible to burn in one of these larger torches. But there is a clear and obvious difference in the style and design of the tip. The tip on the bottom that's copper, used for acetylene. This tip is used for propane. And the same holds true for the torches at school, just a different end, the same style. This is propane. Natural gas and propane use the two-piece. And this one would be used for acetylene. Now, I'll take these hazards out of the way and I'll put them back. I'll be right back. Okay, guys. Come on down this way with the camera. Everyone understands what this is. This is propane for your gas grill. Most all of us hook up our gas grill, and we have a coupler that fits on here. One of the things you may not know about, there's threads in here too. This is my regulator gauge that we can adapt to propane. The propane gauge goes in here. And just like the fuel side of the torch, it has reverse threads. So you put that on with reverse threads. You don't over tighten this thing. You get the wrench, you make it snug. It is possible to cut with propane, even from a gas grill. You certainly want to make sure this cylinder is well out of harm's way before you even think about cutting. Go ahead and stop it.